Then we'll start with the lecture.
So should we start?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Good afternoon to dignitaries and my dear friends. Before starting the webinar, I would like to request everyone to keep the audio and video off. And you can post your questions in the comment box with your name during the lecture. The questions will be answered in the end, depending on the availability of time. I, Shubham Ekbote, Vice President of SP Navroji Wadia College Student Chapter, take pleasure to welcome you all to the webinar organized by Navroji Wadia College and SP Mumbai section. This webinar has been organized in order to provide the students a platform to interact with oil and gas professionals during this unprecedented situation. These industry academia sessions will help us to build the confidence to step in the industry with sound technical knowledge. The topic for today's lecture is coal bed methane. We are overwhelmed to have Mr. Bibhu Prasad Parida as the speaker of the day. Mr. Bibhu Parida has integrated knowledge and work experience of 15 years in both geoscience and reservoir engineering domain of coal bed methane. He completed his master's in geology from IIT Dhanbad in 2006. He started his work as exploration geologist in Tata Steel in 2006. Thereafter, he joined Reliance Industries in 2007 as a geologist. In July 2010, he started functioning as senior reservoir engineer in Reliance Industries. He has also worked as a lead reservoir engineer from February 2014 to July 2014. And now he is currently functioning as a general manager, reservoir engineering, coal bed methane since July 2014. I would also like to mention that he is also completing his PhD in artificial intelligence in forecasting coal bed methane gas production at MIT Pune from 2020. Now, I request Mr. Bibhu Parida to address our keen listeners.
Thanks, Shubham, for the introduction. And I would like to take this opportunity and on behalf of Reliance Industries Limited, I would like to thank Sagar and this SP chapter and P.K. Verma sir, who is our senior in Reliance Industries Limited, to give this opportunity. And I will discuss about this CBM coal bed methane, and I will try to keep it very simple as per this graduation or master's level. And if any query in between, then you may ask me, or we can discuss it later.
Okay, sir. We will keep the question answer session in the end.
My presentation will take approximately 1 hour, maybe, depending on the. If there is no query in between, then we can complete it within 1 hour, and then we can take the queries.
Okay. So we'll take all the questions in the end. We will ask them to post the questions in the chat box.
Okay.
And in the end, we will do that session separately.
Yeah. I hope my presentation is visible.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody, once again. And today's topic will be coal bed methane, subsurface to surface. I will take up everything from geology to production. I'll keep it simple, but we'll see the total flow, like from exploration to production. And
Sir, sorry to interrupt. The presentation is not yet full screen.
Not yet full screen. Take it full screen.
I think you press the key, but it is not turning into full screen.
Is visible now? Means full screen now?
No.
Yes, it's full screen.
There's a keyboard key also. I don't remember which one. Can anyone guide?
I am not that familiar with this Google Meet. I used to work in Team and Zoom. Let me present again.
Yes, it is now.
Visible. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So I'll give some reference to our India's current energy scenario also, because we should know means why we are doing this and what is the need. Otherwise, everything like why we are doing exploration, why at all we require this gas and oil and gas. Is there any demand or not? Those things also we. So we'll start with this energy scenario, India's current energy scenario. So India is the third largest energy consumer in the world after China and US. And oil and gas accounted for around 35% share of India's energy consumption. And we are the third largest oil consumer. But our input means our indigenous supply is very less. We are per year. So you can see this graph, where this is the demand supply graph. So this red part is our demand and this is our supply. So you can see that out of 100%, the demand gap is around 80% in case of oil, and in case of gas, it is around 60%. So there is a huge gap. As well, when there is a huge gap, there is a potential also. So we have a market because there is a demand. So we have a market. So whatever we will produce, that can be sold. That is guaranteed. Then, what is the source of oil and gas? There are two sources, conventional and unconventional. There is no like fixed term like what is conventional and unconventional, but generally conventional systems are which are in production since last 20-30 years, and unconventional they were not commercial products. So in this picture, you can see these are the conventional oil and gas, where sandstone reservoir or limestone reservoir, and unconventionals are coal bed methane or shale gas or tight gas sand. So India has around 10,680 million tons of oil and oil equivalent gas. And out of that, we can produce around 4,000 MMT of oil. So it's around 26 BCM of resources. Is around 200 PCM. That means huge resources are there in unconventional system. So system will play a major role in bridging that demand and supply gap, which we discussed in our first slide. If we have so much conventional oil and gas, then what is the problem? Like why we are going after this unconventional? So if you see the production trend of oil and gas of India, this production trend is declining from 2014 to 2019. Whatever data is available in public domain, you can always go and refer this MOPNG site or DGS site. So this is oil, this is gas. So oil is declining, gas is also declining, or it is stable kind of thing. So production from both conventional system has been either declining or stabilized since last 5 years. But CBM production, if you see, it was in an inclining stage. Currently, it is bit like it is stabilizing because of some gas marketing issue of 1 or 2 operators. So CBM production is inclining stage, and shale gas production is yet to be started. Commerciality is still yet to be established. So I have not put any shale gas production, but if you see unconventional CBM production is in inclining stage. And key technical difference between two sources, conventional petroleum system and unconventional petroleum system. This is very important. The reservoir and source rocks are independent in case of conventional, but in unconventional, here unconventional means mostly CBM and shale gas. The reference is about CBM and shale gas. Reservoir and source rock are same. Then reservoir rock is inorganic in case of conventional system, and here reservoir rock, as it is same, the reservoir and source rock both are organic. You can see this, both are same. Here source rock is your organic, but reservoir rock is inorganic in case of conventional system. This is conventional system. Then relatively high permeability reservoirs in case of conventional. Then low permeability reservoirs are assigned unconventional. Gas storage in macro pores. You can see this picture. This is conventional. In gas or oil, those are in pore spaces. But in case of this CBM, the pore spaces are filled with water, and the gas is stored as a absorption stage, and those are on the surface, on micropore surface. Then the flow from the reservoir is Darcy flow because it has got high permeability in conventional. But in unconventional, in CBM, the flow is diffusion. Part of the flow is diffusion and part is Darcy flow. And fracking job is not always required in conventional, but here fracturing job or technological improvements are very much required in unconventional stuff. Then the major challenge in conventional is to locate reservoir trap and quality pay. But in unconventional, the challenge is to locate the natural fractures and other favorable reservoir properties. So basically, the challenge is to discover a sweet spot where all favorable properties are in the same proportion or quite a good proportion. And in conventional, as permeability and everything is good, then less number of wells are required, and per well productivity is more. Here, your well productivity is less, and that's why well density should be more to get all the gas from reservoir. And conventional, as wells are less and relatively cheaper, it is relatively expensive, but cost can be lowered with improved reservoir characterization and technology. As technology becomes cheaper, and the production will become better and cheaper. And another key aspect of difference of conventional and unconventional is your production curves. Here you can see the production starts from high, then it declines. This is conventional. But in CBM, what happens? Shale gas also kind of same same as a conventional system. But in CBM, what happens? In the beginning, you will get only water because the pore spaces are filled with water. You will get water and less gas, and as the dewatering process expands, then your gas also peaks and then declines. So these are the key differences. This we have already discussed. So what is coal bed methane? Coal bed methane is similar to natural gas. It contains 80 to 98% of methane. It is generally clean and environment friendly. And another important aspect is that if we extract the methane, then your future mine blast or mine fire can be avoided, because this coal becomes safe when we go for mining in like 20 or 30 or after in future. And here coal is both source and reservoir, but we discussed in previous slide also. And methane is formed during qualification process and remain in adsorbed state. This is the picture of a coal bed methane system. This is coal bed, which we can say that is a reservoir, coal reservoir. Here these fractures, the fractures which are known as the cleats also, these fractures are filled with water. So once we dewater this system, after drilling a well, then pressure of the whole system decreases. Once pressure decreases, then your gas which are in adsorbed state on the surface of coal, those begins to dissolve and they start flowing towards the well. So, and our gas production also starts. So once this dewatering stage improves, then our stable production stage comes, where water production will be less and gas production will reaches its peak and stabilizes there for some time, and then it declines. Then both water were declining from the beginning. In this case, in third stage, gas also starts declining. So this is the whole story of CBM in short. So where we can use this gas in power generation, feedstock, fertilizer plant, other chemical or petrochemical industries, or town gas supply. It is like natural gas only. So where are the opportunities? Where we can find this CBM? So for that we have to search first the coal. So these are the major Indian coal and lignite fields. These black points are, these are all Gondwana coals, which are like in geological terms, these are older coals, around 200 means 250 to 300 million years ago these coals formed. So, and these red dots, those are less in quantity in India especially. So these are tertiary coals, they are younger coals. And these are mostly lignites. Not all are lignites, but most of the tertiary coals are lignite in India. So the major coal fields, as you might be knowing, those running on Jharia, Bokaro, all are Gondwana coals, and those are all bituminous coals. And tertiary coal fields are there in Assam, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu. So Gondwana coals constitute around 80% of total resource. And another fact is that India is the fifth largest in terms of coal resources. So 10% of coal world resources are in India. So we have a good quantity of coal resource and where we can start exploring our coal bed methane. So, but within these coals, we have to look for sweet spot identification for commercial discovery. Because might be you will get gas, but you won't like that won't be commercial. So we have to go for commercial discovery. So for that, sweet spot identification is required. And what is sweet spot? I will talk later. Yeah. And this is just state-wise CBM resource which were done by various agencies, and these are in government of India portal. So we have around 26 BCM of CBM resource, and these are all resource, not reserves. Okay. So around 90 TCF that comes in 11 states, and out of these 70% are in Gondwana pools. You can see these are all state-wise breakup of CBM resource, where Jharkhand leads the chart. So that time we talked about a resource. Now about reserve means which blocks, which coal fields are established in terms of CBM. So currently we have these 8 CBM blocks which all are in Gondwana coal fields, and in these 8, out of these 8, 5 blocks are currently under production, and 2 or 3 are in test production. So currently we are producing around 2 million cubic meter per day, and as we discussed earlier, the CBM production is in an inclining stage, and once these test producing blocks those comes into commercial production, then this graph will grow. And in these 8 blocks, there is around 10 TCF in place reserves has been established by different operators. And out of these 280 BCM, the recoverable reserve means which are commercial in quantity, that is around 112 BCM, around 40% recovery factor, 40 to 50% recovery factor operators have quoted. So now we talked about the CBM resources and reserves in terms of India's energy scenario. Let us discuss about some technical stuffs like reservoir characterization, where we will talk about geology, geophysics, and petrophysics that is applied in CBM. So for that, we'll discuss about coal in the beginning. So as you know, coal is a readily combustible rock containing more than 50% by weight and more than 70% by volume of carbonaceous material. So these are mostly formed from the forest that grew around 300 million years ago, and the starting part is peat. Then peat is compressed to form lignite, then bituminous, then anthracite. As temperature and pressure increases, these things gradually goes from peat to anthracite. And this is just how those coal types look. This is the vegetation. This is peat, and this looks like this is lignite. How lignite looks like, and when this bituminous, these bit bright bituminous and anthracite are quite bright. You can see the luster on the surface. So those are high-run pools. And depositional environment, it can be lacustrine or delta plane or pluvial. In Reliance coalfield is mostly deltaic environment. And this is the current. This is a picture of current means present day situation where in future you will get the coal. This is a swamp, current day swamp. So 300 million years ago, the current coal fields were in this type of stage. It's just to give an idea how this forms. in coal rank and subtypes. Though there are basically four types: peat, bituminous, and coal, peat, lignite, bituminous, and anthracite. There are subdivisions. These subdivisions are actually required for further exploration. These are based on your carbon percentage, volatile matter, and bitinite reflectance. So we have to divide our coal field into this with these ranks. These are the rank of coal. Why? Because mostly it has been seen that these bituminous coals are good for commercial production, because these contains a quite good proportion of gas content and permeability and saturation, and others lack either one or two properties. So, So we should know what to look for. I mean, when we go for any exploration type of thing, we should know what and how to look those things. Otherwise, even if there will be a diamond in front of us, then also we can. There is a huge chance that we won't recognize that and we'll move forward. So that's why I have made this diagram. This is I generally call it as CBM quadrilateral, like a fire triangle. This quadrilateral, if we don't have any one of these four parameters, then we won't get a commercial CBM field. So, there are these are only four parameters, but there are many other parameters. But these are the most important factors for commerciality. Other are just they affect slightly to the productivity. So what are these parameters? These are gas content, thickness, permeability, and saturation. So this gas content and thickness, these added up to resource, and this plays a important role. This permeability and saturation for the productivity of the system. If we don't have this gas content and thickness, then our resource will decrease. But for this, for commercial productivity or simple productivity also, we require permeability and saturation also. So all these four parameters, they added up to your commercial CBM. Means some proportion should be there to produce it commercially, and that is called sweet spot. That area where we find all these parameters at good proportion, that is called sweet spot. We'll discuss in this presentation. We'll discuss only about these four important parameters. So there are many parameters, but for that actually separate lectures are required to cover all geological parameters at once, and then all reservoir parameters. So gas content. For gas content, we should know about gas generation first. So once when I told in the beginning slide that during qualification process, gas generates, and that gets absorbed on the coal surface. So how this gas generates? This CH4 you can see through with temperature. This CH4 produces, and this is the rank of coal. So in medium volatile bituminous to low volatile bituminous, this gas production is quite good. Though at anthracite the gas production is the maximum, but here after this high volatile to medium volatile, this gas production peaks. and that gets adsorbed on the cold surface. This is the micropores, and due to van der Waals forces, this methane gets attached to the walls of micropore. And this is the fracture. Once this fracture is filled with water. So once we dewater, then this equilibrium, whatever equilibrium is there, this equilibrium gets altered and gas moves from micropore to the mesopore or macropore, which is your fracture system or cleat. So from here to here, this is governed by diffusion, or this is governed by Fick's law, and here this the flow is governed by Darcy law. So this is the same chart, just in a better representation. The maximum gas generation rate, high volatile bituminous to low volatile bituminous, and here it's increases. And that's the theory, and this is the practical how we measure the gas content. Sagar, the slides are visible and it's proper. No?
Yes, sir. Yes, it's perfect.
Okay. This is actual field scenario. This is a core hole rig. Core hole rigs are generally smaller than production well rig. So then once we core the reservoir, then it's pulled out of the reservoir, and on surface we mark the depth and etc. And then we cut the core barrel and retrieve the core. These are some pictures of core, and it puts into canister. This steel pipe or plastic pipe, those are called canister. We put the core into canister, and then there are different volumetric methods where we measure the gas from this canister. The gas dissolves and produces from here, and then this displaces this liquid, so that we can measure this volume of the liquid. So volume of gas can be measured from here. And one important factor in this desorption process is this canister should be at reservoir temperature, because now this is in surface temperature. So we have to put it into some water bath or something like that. Generally, water is used to keep, warm water is used to keep it at reservoir temperature. So from this experiment, we will get reserved gas, and lost gas is just calculated from some empirical formulas, considering the time taken from depth from subsurface to surface. And residual gas is calculated after this resorption process. We grind the coal, and whatever residual methane is there, then that is measured after grinding the coal. So all these three components added up to total gas content. And out of these three components, generally it is in our field that reserved gas is contains. Reserved gas is around 80% of total gas content. So this process we have to follow properly, otherwise our calculation will be very misleading, and we might leave a field because of this also. Because if we delay this process or we don't measure this, then gas content will be, the measured gas content will be very low than the actual. So on that basis, we might leave a good field. So what is the impact of gas content in production? So as you can see, these are the production graphs. This is gas rate, this is time. These are simulated figures only. There is a direct relationship with the gas content. Means more the gas content, you can see this is 50, this is 600. The more the gas content, higher is the production rate, gas production rate. Then next is gas saturation. So what is gas saturation? For that we require like adsorption isotherm. This is a laboratory study only, where we check means which pressure, how much, what is our capacity, carrying capacity of our coal. This is measured. With pressure, generally how much gas this coal can contain. That is the isotherm. This is generally called Langmuir isotherm, as he has divided this. So this is your gas storage capacity. This pressure, with pressure it increases, and at after some pressure it gets stabilized. That is called our Langmuir volume, and the Langmuir pressure can be calculated. Means if that Langmuir volume is 450, let's say 450, then at 225, at 50% of Langmuir volume, what is the pressure? That is called Langmuir pressure. So from that we can calculate this adsorption, coal adsorption capacity with VLP divided by PL plus P. Here P is the reservoir pressure. So that gives us a theoretical capacity of the coal. But as in the previous slide we measured the initial gas content. So if we plot that initial gas content in this graph, then we'll get a gas saturation. So let's say this gas, the gas storage capacity is 450 SCF per ton, and initial gas content what we measured from our desorption and other tests, that it is 355 SCF per ton. That means there is a slightly under saturation. So from that we can calculate the gas recovery factor and other things. So what is this under saturation? That under saturation means we won't get gas at this pressure, this reservoir pressure. We have to lower the reservoir pressure up to this curve to get the gas. Get the start gas, and after that we will follow this curve. So those Langmuir constants like VL and PL we can get from this isotherm, means this plot also, P by V versus P. So we need not to go through all this calculation. Just you remember that this CBM gas production is governed by adsorption isotherm curve, where we can get the saturation, gas saturation, and the reservoir pressure, where we will get the start gas. If this initial gas content is at 450 here, then we will get the first gas from the very beginning, because it is fully saturated. And if it is above this is oversaturated. Actually, this case doesn't exist. This oversaturation comes if we do some error in our calculation or something. So why it is so important, this isotherm? You can see this impact of this gas content and saturation. This is the isotherm. These are few scenarios, like if our initial gas content is at A, B, C or D. This is slightly undersaturated, this is more undersaturated, this is hugely undersaturated. So you will get this type of production from all these. If it is fully saturated, then you will get a very good peak, very good production. If it is slightly undersaturated, then you won't get this peak production, but you will get a stabilized rate. But if it is undersaturated, then the gas production will be very delayed, and you won't get a good rate for years. So project economics will be hampered. So talked about gas content, now thickness. So generally we can measure thickness from cores, or if we don't do full coring, Generally that is costly. Full coring is costly. So if we don't go for full coring or in production wells, we don't go for this coring only drilling. Then we will get this thickness from logs. So you must be knowing that well logs record the physical properties, where this sound goes down hole and then it records the signals. So in CBM, the general logs which are carried out are gamma and density. If we have gamma and density, we are good to go. Like others are also means that will added up to the reservoir characterization, but at least the gamma and density is required to characterize the reservoir. And from gamma and density, we can measure the thickness and the properties of coal. And this is the coal description, this is site description plus your from this log description. We have to generate this type of things like the described coal description of coal. And you can see this is a seam, this is a coal, the top seam where density is less, and accordingly your gamma is also less, because in coal your gamma reading will be very less. And this is a micro image log, which is just a few. I thought some high resolution, means good logs, which are these are the standard logs like density and gamma. But these are some hi-fi logs where we can know about the cleat system and fracture system, those things. So generally, we in our field we take these logs also in few wells, but all wells are having this gamma density or resistivity, those logs. In few wells we go for this micro imaging or stress logs for better characterization of the reservoir. So once we get this gas content, thickness and density, we calculate the gas in place, which is the resource. This is a simplified version of gas in place calculation, where A is area, H is thickness, it is density and gas content. You just multiply everything and you will get a gas content, a resource of that area. In a few applications of surface geophysics in CBM, we can go for seismic. High resolution seismic is required because this CBM, these coal beds are very thin. So for that, your resolution should be very high. Otherwise, you won't catch these coal seams. Here you can, or if, to get the micro faults, small scale faults, you have to go for high resolution seismic survey. So you can see this is some interpretation. This is your fault, and these are few coal seams. So from this, we have to generate some kind of sections, which is required for your model building. And gravity magnetic can also be this seismic. Few in our field also, in few parts we have done this seismic, but not this gravity magnetic. Gravity magnetic can also be done to get the sediment thickness and basements or major faults. This can be done if the field is very new and a lot of information is not there to start with. That is about geology, geophysics, and petrophysics. And let's talk something on reservoir engineering, where we from this is required to get reserve from resource. So well testing means for this reservoir engineering, first we measure the permeability. So what is permeability in coal bed? The permeability is nothing but the flow capacity, and that is mostly governed by the fracture system in coal, natural fracture system, and generally those fractures are called cleats. This is just a diagram to show what is face cleat and butt cleat. There are two types of cleats. So face cleat and butt cleats both are diagonal, orthogonal to each other. So this is your face cleat, which is quite, long in nature, means continuous in nature, and butt cleats are just connection to two face cleats, and those are discontinuous. And if we have some fracture system, then this permeability gets enhanced in that particular area. You can see these are face cleats and butt cleats and this fracture system. So we'll get maximum permeability here. And if we get maximum permeability, then productivity will be definitely higher in this area. So secondary fractures generally enhances the cleat permeability. And we can go for some remote sensing image for the lineament identification, which generally governs. From that we can get this the idea of secondary fractures. And this is a actual field photograph of coal, but these face cleats are quite evident and butt cleats are not so evident. You have to see some enlarged picture to identify the face cleats. And another important stuff is this aperture also. So if there is face cleat and the apertures are filled, then it is very difficult to get good permeability. And this is a geological timing of cleat development. The early cleat development is in subbituminous coal to lignite. Then actual fracture development increases with this with rank, and then it get decreases also once we reach higher rank coals. This line should be somewhere here, and after that this cleat annealing or cleat fracture closure starts in low volatile bituminous to anthracite coals, and that's why the permeability becomes very low in high rank coals. It's very low in low rank coals. It's very low in high rank coals also. So we have to look for the window where these fractures are good, like cleat development is good. So that is the subsurface part. If there is cleat, there is everything. So how to measure that? Whether there is cleat or not, means whether there is permeability or not. And if there is cleat, then whether that is connected or not. Those things we can determine from this well testing. So how this well testing done in coal seams? Here, this is the coal seam. So what we do generally, we isolate this seam with a packer system. With this, we isolate this seam to other seams or other parts of the coal. Then water gets injected into the coal and it pressurizes the coal. And once we achieve a good pressure in coal seam, then we stop the water injection and we go for this follow-up part. We leave the well like that so that the pressure dissipates, and that pressure signature we generally the pressure signature is recorded in this electronic memory gauge here. So this whole system takes around 15 to 20 hours because injection is for around 10 hours and 3 times of injection. So around 30-40 hours it takes, the whole system takes. And that is also based on your permeability. If permeability is, if your system is good, then you can go for a lesser time also. Here what I told Now we go for in the beginning we go for injection of water. Then in that case this pressure increases. Then we go for follow-up. We stop injection here. Then this pressure. We measure this pressure, and this pressure we generally studied with some industry standard softwares. This is time versus your delta P. From that signature, we can get to know the permeability and reservoir pressure, and if there is any damage in the coal or not, and whether we got any boundary like fault or some other shell layers or sand layers. Those things we can identify from this. So, from wellbore, the radius of investigation is around 50 meters for this test. And what is the impact of permeability again? So, whatever data we are taking, we should at least know the impact on production. Otherwise, when it will be futile. Otherwise, we won't just give justice to our work. If we know what is the impact, then we will be more serious and we'll do a good work. So you can see if permeability is high, then your production is more. This will achieve this peak rate at a lesser time also. So that will lead to higher net present value of the well, and the project becomes economically viable. If permeability is low, it is very difficult to produce the gas, and we have to go for other techniques. And once we get all this type of data like gas content, thickness, permeability, then isotherms, to get the gas rate, we have to calculate the gas rate. Previously we calculated only the resource, means this much is there, but how much we'll get from that and how we'll get that, means we'll get it initially, or we have to wait for 5 years to get the production. Those type of things can be answered with reservoir simulation. So this is the integration of all possible data collected in field, but here this follows this garbage in, garbage out thing. And more you with the model, you'll likely to believe it. Those things are there. Results are precise, but may not be accurate. It's just a model, but it will give a good support to your decision making. You can judge the things in a better way, and it can handle the WWWH type of questions, and you can effectively develop a CBM field using this simulations, reservoir simulation, because it considers all type of data. You can see this geological data, reservoir data, production data, fluid properties, everything. Which type of well we are doing, what type of facility we have. These are the extra data requirement what we discussed earlier. Gas content, thickness, everything. This is a mathematical model to build to start the simulation. And this flow modeling, as we discussed, there are 3 Ds of CBM. One is disruption, then diffusion, and then Darcy flow. Darcy flow in fracture, diffusion in micropores, and disruption is from the surface of coal. You can see this diffusion, then disruption, diffusion, Darcy flow. Then this is to the well. In the process of reservoir simulation, a simplified process. We have to first whatever data we gathered, that we need to put it on a map. Then we have to interpolate, because we cannot do we cannot do everywhere those 4 holes or data wells. So you have to interpolate those data with suitable techniques. Then you have to digitize data and build a model first. Yep, this is a model, simulator model, and this data goes into this, and that looks like this. This is a property populated geocellular model where you can see where this is for a particular property. So where you are having good property, where you are having less property, you can identify that in this geocellular model, and that goes into again a simulator, and with other reservoir properties we run the simulation, and finally we get this type of this is the end product. This is gas rate, this is water rate. You can get other things also, pressure, everything. But for simplification, I put only this. This is time, and this is gas rate and water rate. This is required. How our reservoir will produce. And these are few names of CBM simulators like Comet 3, Eclipse, GEM. Previously, we don't have much good simulator like 10-15 years back, only Comet 3, but right now we have good simulators. Eclipse also is capable of doing, and that is becoming better and better day by day. And why will do this reservoir simulation? What is the requirement? This gas and water production we can know. Then this for well and for field also we can identify, means we can understand the field production. If we add the wells and their individual gas and water production potential, then we can get this type of graphs, and optimize the well spacing, means well density, whether we should go for large number of wells at beginning or less number of wells. If we go for 160 acre spacing, how it will, how our production will be, and if we go for a less drainage area, so that will this will give you an idea, means how to develop your field. Otherwise, you will start with like your own gut feeling. Let's do it. Let's do that type of thing. Then sensitivity studies, if my we have discussed like if my gas content is more, what will happen if my saturation becomes less, or whatever we have measured, if saturation is not that, then what impact it will be, it will give in my predictability and my field forecasting. So those things also we can understand. So risk and uncertainty part we can cover with this simulation. Let's study new technology options. If we go for a horizontal well, or if we go for some multilateral well, or some other type of technology, then what kind of productivity I will get? Whether that is commercial, that gives benefit to the technique, benefit to my field or not? That we can easily model and easily identify. And if we have a producing field, then we can go for history matching. History matching is nothing but we have to, if we have let's say 2 years of production data, then we have to match that data with our existing properties. If our properties are not matching with that data, then we have to tweak the properties and we have to match. We have to match that production, because ultimately production is the main thing. That is actual. So so we can go for history matching, and then we can see, like let's say if from history matching we understood that no, our permeability was not 30, which we assumed, which we estimated before drilling, it's not 30 everywhere. Let's say it's 20. Then what we'll do? Then we can go for some infill drilling. Like we can go for more number of wells. Like you can see here in the beginning, we went for more number of wells. Then you can go for less. Means here we went for less number of wells. Then you can go for more number of wells. If you know that your permeability is less, or if your permeability is high, then you can decide accordingly. So These type of things you can always go for, and that will help in future planning and optimizing. That will reduce cost drastically. And it's not like it's you have to go for the full field. You can identify your sub areas, and accordingly you can develop that area in a different manner. You can develop other areas in different manner. So all type of things you can do. So with this, generally this is the field development approach of a virgin field. So first, it's generally we go for core program, coral program, where we drill exploratory wells to get cores from where we can get gas content, additional isotherm, then thickness, injection and injection follow this permeability testing. We'll get permeability. Then this reservoir simulation is everywhere actually. After that, we go do reservoir simulation and get the spacing pattern or productivity of the well. Then, generally in CBM, one pilot we go for pilot testing. If we know that this is our sweet spot. Let's say this is our sweet spot. It's good for good in all aspects, gas content, saturation, everything. So it's drill few floor space production wells and test those wells. Whether that is having means to look for the producibility, how it is, whether it is matching with our simulated figures or not, and whether that will be economic or not. Those things. For that, we go for some pilot study. Then once this your production capability is established through this pilot study, you go for this commercial pilot, where around these 5 spots you drill, around this pilot you drill more number of wells. So you expand that area. Then slowly you expand, and it will give the field production will be higher and higher. Why we expand? Because generally this area if this is the sweet spot area, we have to capture this area first, then we'll go for other areas. So that type of thing. That is the general workflow for this field development approach in CBM. So we discussed mostly the subsurface technical parts, geology, geophysics, reservoir engineering. Now, if we once we establish the productivity, and we discover the sweet spot, then establish the productivity, and we from simulation we know that yes, we have a good property, and we can develop this field, and we fix the development approach also, that we drill in 160 acre or 80 acre, and these areas we are going to drill. Then we'll go for drilling things. Coral ridge I have already shown you in that. For coral we go for a thin, very low dia wells to just get the core, and then we abandon this coral. But in production wells, these are like the investment is more, and we keep it. We design it so that it will last 20 to 30 years, which is the general field well life of CBM. So here this is the 958 casing, then this is production casing. Here these are the coal seams, and we fracture these coal seams. And behind this, this is cement. This is cemented, and this is a production well rig. Just to give an overview, you can see this rig is very small, and this is a huge rig. So, and depending on depth, also the rig and rig capacity varies. And generally, to fracture these coals in Reliance, we go for this ball and baffle system. We put a ball to isolate this seam from this seam, first we do fracturing of these lower seams, then we put a ball here and fracture these seams. We perforate and fracture. This is vertical well, and we'll talk about horizontal well later. And why these CBM wells are different than other wells in terms of drilling? To avoid, generally in CBM wells, mud drilling is avoided. This is very, the permeability is very less, and your cleat systems are, we don't want to damage those cleat systems around wellbore. That's why we generally avoid the mud drilling, and we go for air drilling, where only water or mist, those are used to drill the well. So you can see these well bores remain intact. Because these coals are actually very fragile. So if we go for mud drilling and things, those will be fractured, and the mud will create a kind of, this will damage the near wellbore region. So the outer region will be cut off from this well, and the flow capacity will be hampered from a reservoir, because this part becomes very damaged and very low permeability, and the skin will be formed in this part. So that's why go for air drilling wells. And lightweight cement slurry is also used not to damage the well, damage the reservoir during cementation. And in completion, generally the most suitable or more widely used completion technique is hydrofracturing in CBM, because coals are low permeability and also damaged during drilling. So some types of stimulation is required in order to obtain commercial gas production, in order to connect wellbore to reservoir. So that is the main objective of hydrofracturing, to create a wide vertical fracture of greater length to create a conduit that connects the complex cleat system, that is reservoir, to wellbore. And what is hydrofracturing? This is just a application of pressure through fluid column to a reservoir face, and so that we can crack the formation rock, crack the coal, and create a fracture. And once this fracture gets created, then we put propant. Propant is nothing but sands to avoid the fracture closure. This is actual side picture of hydraulic fracturing, where you can see huge tanks of water and the sand is there, and pumping units. We pump water first, then sand gets pumped once this fracture gets created. You can see this. So fractures get created, then sands these fractures are filled with propant or sands, so that it gets it remains open, and then those fracturing fluids, means those water and the associated chemical that gets produced from the well, so that will clean the system. Only sands will remain there to keep the fractures open. All other chemicals and those are recovered from the wells. And after that, we put the well into production. When all the chemicals gets produced, once we clean the well, we put the wells under production. There will be a pump, and that will pump the water to surface, and then gas is released from coal into fractures and to well. This is a very simplified diagram. What is fracture and how to fracture, and from fracture to production. And this is just a technical diagram. What happens during your hydraulic fracturing? How pressure increases, how pressure decreases once this fracturing job gets completed. So from this we can interpret the fracture, what is the length of fracture, and those and fracture properties also. A few emerging technologies in drilling, like there is a horizontal well. These emerging technologies actually can avoid the reservoir heterogeneity. Like if this is in this coal seam, we have some fracture system here, and we have some fracture system here. So one vertical well cannot attack both these fracture systems. Okay, and it's very difficult to know also whether that to put the fracture system just above, put the vertical well just above fracture system. In that case, these horizontal wells are very good to manage that heterogeneity. In one well, we can connect number of fracture systems, and that uncertainty will go away. So previously, these horizontal wells were very costly, and right now technology is emerging, so things are getting better and better and cheaper also. So these things can be applied in fields so that this reservoir heterogeneity can be avoided, and we will get a good commercial flow. So in this case, what I have shown here, this horizontal well will start here, and it will be connected with a vertical well. So right now the technology means pumping technology are so good that even we can avoid this also. We can go for a single lateral, go for a lateral. There is no requirement of vertical well. So technology is emerging day by day. So you can reduce the cost. Once you reduce the cost, even the wells which were producing at less quantity, those can be economical. And there are newer technologies. These are like from one well you can branch out also. This type of things. These are pinnet wells, and many new names have come up. Pinnet or fishbone, something like that. So you can do this. Just a few parts of production. How this production well looks like. In last slide we saw that only this well. And once we put the well into production, then this pumps comes into picture. So this pump is used to lift the water from subsurface to surface. And once we lift water, then associated gas will flow. And there is a separator to separate gas and water. There is only gas, and sometimes it's gas and water both. So those things get separated from here, and those goes to your pipeline and facilities. And these are the separators, different types of separator. This is a well, and these are separator. And here you can see these are actual photographs of our field. And here you can see the gas. There is gas flame. There are few pumps which are used in CBM field to lift the water. This is a sucker rod pump, and this is a PC pump, progressive cavity pump, and then ESPs are also, electrical submersible pumps are also used to handle large quantity of water. So the technology, day by day, technology is improving. Previously, we are using this type of pumps mostly. Then these pumps. Now the full field is having this type of pumps. So all are having their pros and cons. So we can use depending on the requirements. But pump failure and those things, those are becoming less and less due to this technology advancement. And this is a typical CBM production facility. These are from well to your market. The CBM wells, then from wells, this through pipeline it goes to separator. Here water gets separated and that goes to your treating pond, and then from in treating pond this water gets treated, and it like solids and TDS, those things gets removed here, and that water goes for irrigation or disposal purpose. And here this gas goes to compressor station where it gets compressed and go to dehydrator, then cells, then your main pipeline and to consumer. So we covered from our subsurface to surface to consumer, the part of coal bed methane. There are some few conclusions which we discussed throughout our field. There is a huge gap as well as potential to produce indigenous oil and gas. And looking at huge resource, unconventional will play a major role to bridge the demand and supply gap. And as coal is both source and reservoir, characterization is important, and like I told earlier, proper characterization and discovery of sweet spot is must and having paramount importance in developing CBM field. It's a myth that wherever there is coal, there is gas. It might contain 0.001 cubic meter per cubic meter gas, but that we cannot tell that is a gas. So we have to look for this sweet spot identification and proper reservoir characterization. And technology are improving day by day in both exploration front and production front, drilling front, every front. It's now we can take. We can characterize with very good logs and very high-fi logs our reservoir, and we can go for other types of well testing also with a low cost to get permeability, so many things, and seismic etc. cost permits, then we can go for those things. So technology is becoming better and cheaper. So more and more unconventional resources which are previously not in commercial domain, those can be added into country's energy basket. So, and most of Indian coal fields, as I discussed previously, 80% of Indian coal fields are bituminous coals. So that those bituminous coals provides optimum condition of gas storage as well as gas flow. So our work is to identify the sweet spot and put the well and flow it. So I am hopeful that in future more and more CBM fields will be on radar of Indian oil and gas scenario. So with that, I conclude my slides, my presentation. Thanks all. If you have any query or if you want to know in depth on the few things, then we can discuss those things.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Karminder for question answer session.
Thank you, Shubham. Now moving on to the question answer session. The first question is from Shahzad Ansari. What is the difference between coal bed methane and coal mine methane?
Technically, there is no difference. Means if we talk regarding this geology or geophysics or reservoir engineering, but coal mine methane is generally that term is associated by government or something where this there is an existing coal mine, and coal bed methane generally associated with this. Where there in current scenario there is no mining, and maybe in future that will go for mining.
Thank you, sir. Next question is from Shubham Gajul. How is Reliance treating the water generated during the production? Yeah,
we have a settling pond. I showed you in one of our slides that water gets separated at first in well set facility, and it goes to that settling pond. There the TDS etc. that settles, and we measure in every well. We measure the quality of water, and at facility also that pond or central facility also we measure the treating that water chemistry, and after checking the water chemistry only we treat it accordingly. Like generally in our field, the waters are very it's like a drinkable water. It's not like in USA or Australia that the TDS and other things are very much in cattle grade. Though it's not in human drinking grade, but it's in cattle drinking grade. So you can easily use it for irrigation or cattle. But still we do we treat it in that pond. We settle the TDS, and if required, we add some what is that? We arrow type of things. So we separate the other things from the water, then we drain it. But that water means from surface to well, means at well site only. That water is very much in cattle grade. It's less than 500 TDS. Very good water.
Thank you, sir. Next question is from Rahul Pawar. Hello, sir. Could you please explain more about air drilling for CBM?
Yeah, means air drilling. What you want to know exactly? It's here we use either water or like mist, like air with some foam. Foam type of thing to drill the well. We don't use any chemical like bentonite or some other chemicals to our drilling mud to increase the density or specific gravity of drilling mud. So the drilling mud density remains very less. Means we try to keep it less so that it won't fracture the system.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, if your query is not getting answered properly, then you can discuss. No issue.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Next question is from Prajwal Banjari. Hello, sir. Is there any difference in casing and cementing job of oil well and CBM well?
I think there was one more query also previous that reservoir permeability is less than we can produce it economically.
Yes, sir. Actually, it's from my it was my question.
Okay.
If the reservoir permeability is less than, then can we produce it economically?
Yes. See, we have to go for other technology. Okay. It's a like trade-off kind of thing. If after doing a simulation, let's say in vertical well, after doing simulation with a vertical well, we are seeing that it is not economical. Okay, then we can check for horizontal wells. In if it's with horizontal well, how much we will get? Okay, if whatever we get from that horizontal well, if that doesn't cover the cost of horizontal well, generally horizontal wells are more costly than vertical well. If that doesn't, that additional quantity of gas doesn't cover the additional amount we are spending for this horizontal well, then we won't go. If it covers that, then that becomes economic. But it's kind of if production, if reservoir permeability is less, we cannot change that. We have to go for few new technology. So, and we have to see with using that technology, how much incremental quantity of gas we are getting, and how, what is the cost of our technology, that technology. So either technology cost should be less, or gas production, that incremental gas amount should be high, so that we can do it economically.
Thank you, sir. Next question is from
And
Prajwal
another,
Vanzari.
just to add to that answer, another thing is, once you explore your sweet spot, let's say you have some less permeable reservoir, okay, and you have some good permeable reservoir. First, you develop your good permeability reservoir, and there you have your wells, your facility, everything you do, and you produce that. And after few years, you can add those low permeability reservoirs, because one, you are already developing the field, so the other costs are already taken care of. Okay, so just to add one well, you will spend less cost. So those type of permutation combination you can do.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Prajwal Vanzari. Hello, sir. Is there any difference in casing and cementing job of oil well and CBM well?
Yeah, oil well casing, there are 3-4 types of casing. In CBM well, generally only surface casing and production casing is there. But in oil well, there are some intermediate casing, and depending on the situation. Otherwise, few oil wells are like CBM wells only. Those onshore oil wells which are having in the less low depth, like in Assam or something, if those are in 400-500 meter depth, in like in Gujarat also. So those are almost similar. And CBM wells, if CBM wells are having huge depth, then that casing things becomes different. It depends on the depth, actually, depth of the well. But in general sense, CBM wells are having only 2 sets of casing, and oil wells more than 2 sets of casing. And cementing job, I am not very sure, but yeah, here cementing, I showed you in one slide, no, that cement is less damaging in this case. Lightweight cement slurries we use in CBM, not to keep it like not to fracture the CBM. But in oil, that type of things is not there, so we can use anything.
Thank you, sir. Next question is from Rahul Pawar. Does quality or type of coal determine the amount of gas it will produce? Like anthracite type coal being the best, will it produce more CBM?
No, it's not like there is no linear relationship like with any one property. Like I showed you that CBM quadrilateral, there are 4 properties which plays a major role. Okay, let me show it once again. That's the most important part, actually. CBM exploration. Yeah, is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So only one thing won't play a role in this commerciality. You might be knowing about this fire triangle. Okay, there are 3 things: oxygen, that combustion, those things. Even if one is not there, then fire won't start. This is like this is almost same type of thing. If you don't have any one of these 4 parameters, then you won't produce. Like if you don't have thickness, then from where you will produce? The gas content, permeability, saturation. So that's why this anthracite that is having very huge gas content, but this permeability is not permeability is very less. showed you in one slide, this rank versus permeability. Yeah, this should be here only. This with this rank, that anthracite and those things with VRO, higher VRO, and with higher rank, these cleats get annealed. Annealed means cleats get closed because of this pressure and temperature, those things. So that permeability becomes very poor in anthracite. That's why the problem of production is there.
Thank you, sir. Next question is from Priya Ranjan Patra. Thanks, sir, for an informative presentation. What should be the minimum IRR for a CBM block to be commercially viable?
Yeah, that's again a subjective question. Like it depends on depends on the organization, but generally, 15%, the minimum cutoff is 15%. But it depends on organization. If it is having like if some can go for 10% also. If they are getting the bank loan at like 2% or 3%, or they don't have anywhere to invest the money where they can get more than 10%, then they can go for this one. This 15% also good for them. 15% IRR. So minimum cutoff is 15% generally.
Thank you, sir. Next question is from Abhinash Bal. Gas generally present in three form: in free pore space, absorbed form, and dissolved form. In hydraulic fracking, we generally extract the free form gas. Can you please say how you extract the other two form, which contribute significant reserves? Secondly, what is the progress of enhanced CBM in India?
Yeah. The first question, like generally, it's I agree. It's free pore space, adsorbed form, and dissolved form. But adsorbed form is around 98%. Like pore space, free pore space, these structures, these cleats, there is like 2 to 5%, let's say, or max to max 10%. So in hydraulic fracturing, we don't produce from. We produce from that, and but we that hydraulic fracturing, what it does, it increases the chances of producing water from the cleats. It increases the conductivity of the system, so that all waters can be flowed to your well, and that gets produced. So once water gets produced, then your system pressure gets released. System pressure, reservoir pressure becomes lower. And once reservoir pressure gets lower, then this gas which are in adsorbed form, those gas gets released and produces. So hydraulic fracturing is not done to that produce the free form of gas. It is done just to increase the near wellbore conductivity, so that the system pressure can be lowered through producing water from the system. And that dissolved form, that again, that dissolved gets produced from through water only. So that is a very less amount. So most of the things are in significant reserve in adsorbed form only. So that is get produced through by lowering the pressure. And second question, what is the progress of enhanced CBM? Yeah, I think there is still no progress because for enhanced CBM, means this is that tertiary recovery process. So we don't have. We are now in primary or secondary part only. So few few laboratory studies are going on, but there is no such field pilot is not there yet. Because for that your pressure should be very low. Your reservoir pressure, you should lower your reservoir pressure, and for that at least 8-10 years of production should be there to go for NCBM. Otherwise, means if something happens or something, you will you will lose the reservoir which you are flowing also. So those things are there. So right now there is no field pilot, actual pilot in India. But certainly there is some progress in laboratory studies. Reliance is also doing something on NCBM. We are also trying to get it. Means trying to keep it ready so that after a few years we can do that in our field.
Thank you, sir. That's all for question and answer session. I request Shubham to take charge.
Thank you, Garminder. Now I request Amit for vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shubham. First and foremost, on behalf of the Razi Wadia College SPE Student Chapter, I take the opportunity to put all my gratitude in words. I would like to thank our speaker, Mr. Bibho Parida, who has taken out valuable time from his busy schedule to share a vast knowledge. Sir, your talk were very informative that kindled a renewed enthusiasm in us. On behalf of the entire SPE group, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for your presence and inspiring words. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. B.K. Hadina, without whose support the lecture would not have been possible. Thank you, sir. I also thank Head of Department, Dr. Sanjida Khan, for your cooperation. Finally, I would like to thank the students who have been a very encouraging and attentive audience. Thank you all. You may leave the session now, and please stay safe.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. We hope to have you again in the future.
Yeah. And if somebody is having any any doubt or something like that, or if somebody wants to know further, means more about these things, then they can mail me. Okay. I'm giving my mail ID here in chat box, so they can mail me and we can discuss.
Yes, sir. Surely.
Regular. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.